Hi, Kirsten Dahlerup here. I'd like to talk to you about shadow sides. So the other day I wrote a little equation and I put it on my website that goes self-love times inner wisdom equals freedom. So an example of inner wisdom is this thing about knowing about or noticing when a shadow side shows up in us. So a shadow side is simply a name for a psychological aspect of ourselves that we have suppressed. So maybe we suppressed it as children because that side of us didn't feel acceptable in the family. So it could be, for example, it wasn't acceptable to be loud or be playful or laugh out loud, or it wasn't acceptable to cry or to show negative emotions. I'm doing this because no emotions are negative, but it wasn't okay to do that. So that got suppressed. It got seen as something bad, not acceptable. But that doesn't mean that those needs or natural emotions go away. They are just suppressed. So they will tend to come up in our lives, they'll tend to stick up their heads, but now in a sort of a negative way, an unhelpful way, because they are not fully embraced or developed. So we can notice our own shadow sides when we seem to project our emotions onto other people, when we point our finger at them, when we want them to be different. We want reality to be different. And we are adding a narrative which is really imprisoning us because reality is reality. So let me give you an example. So an example could be that there's a colleague or someone else in our lives who we feel that let's say they're complaining a lot, and we get irritable about that. Why do they always complain? And we zoom in on it. We're noticing it. We want them to be different. We don't like it, and that's because it's triggering something in us. Because when something is being triggered, that means that there's something in us that is recognizing it, but it's not fully acknowledged or developed or transformed. So in this example, what we can do is we can go, okay, interesting. I'm being triggered by this person when they complain. That means I do the same. Where in my life am I complaining too much? In which way am I complaining too much? So when we ask ourselves these questions, we're kind of coaching ourselves, and we can start noticing, oh yeah, I do it in that context or in that place. So now that I'm aware of that, I can actually change it. I can't change it before I'm aware of it. So now suddenly the other person who showed up as a complainer was kind of like a mirror, or you could say a spiritual teacher. And we could open a door into our own wisdom and grow in that sense and transform an aspect of ourselves that needed transforming. Another example of a suppressed aspect or a shadow side could be when we are drawn to something in someone else, a skill they have or a quality, and we're kind of putting them on a pedestal, and we don't believe that we could do the same. So it could be, that person is just so disciplined. They always go to the gym or work out, or that person is so good at public speaking or being creative or with their children or writing or whatever. We're drawn to it. I wish I had that. We like to be around those types of people. And that's because, again, we are recognizing it. There's a part of us that hasn't been embraced, that hasn't been allowed to develop that skill or that flavor in themselves. And that could also, again, simply just be that that wasn't being nurtured when we grew up in our families, or it wasn't being valued. Maybe the family went, no, you can't be have a creative job, you must study to be, something very practical. And of course, they did that with the best intention, but it meant that that part got suppressed. It didn't get nurtured. So now it's sitting there and it wants to be seen. So it gets really drawn into other people who are, who have developed that. So it's fascinating how we can create freedom for ourselves, how we can update aspects of ourselves and gradually become more whole, become more complete, simply by noticing how our response to other people, our narrative, our emotions are really just aspects of ourselves trying to get our attention. So rather than pointing fingers at the other person or doing what we could call a spiritual bypass, where we pretend that we are not being triggered, where we go, no, I'm so spiritual, that doesn't bother me, I'll go, beyond it. That's not spirituality. Spirituality is knowing that we're all part of something that is connected, something beyond ourselves, and that we all, in a way, showing up as aspects that we all contain. So that way someone else can be a door opener if we allow them to, if we use our inner wisdom, thereby we can transform ourselves. We could say dark shadow sides, or we can embrace and unfold what we could call light shadow sides, so that we can have the freedom to live our best life. Okay, so my advice is to notice that, try it out, and let me know if you need any help with that or something else. Enjoy.